Why should you join a mission trip? My name is Sean Kohlfarber. We also have Miss Jen Huff over here that will be presenting, and we have Mr. Brandon Jones. I'm connected to them because this is my mother-in-law and this is my brother-in-law. So it's a family thing here. The title that they had on the door was Why Join a Mission Trip? And the title that we have on the screen is Why Should You Join a Mission Trip? It's a little bit different, but there's a lot more impact. I just need a show of hands. How many of you been on a mission trip that's been a week long? So, got a few here. How many of you have been on a mission trip that's longer than 2 weeks? Oh, wow. So we've got a few people here that have done that. And then how many of you have been on a mission trip outside of the United States? So we got, wow, we've got a lot of people here that have done this. So you guys are old pros. I wanted to tell you a little bit of how missionary, that word missionary or missions, how it's impacted my life. This lady that's over here, the one that has the flowers and the leis, is my mother. She was a student missionary to a town or a country called Liberia. And if you look here on the Cape of Africa, Liberia is right next to Sierra Leone. When she did it her junior year when she went to La Sierra. And this is like before I was even born. But the thing that she taught us or talked about when we were growing up is that she helped kids with their English. So she was teaching people how to speak English. She also helped take care of the missionaries because they were full-fledged missionaries that were living there teaching about God, helping out with their kids. And then she also let her light shine. And one of the things that she mentioned was during her time there was actually a change in the leadership in Liberia. And one of the kids that she had in her class teaching English to was the brother of the guy that became the president of Liberia. And so the thing that just blew my mind is that when you are in the mission field, you are going to be connected with some of the most powerful people in those countries. Just so that you get a sense of what the agenda is like, we're going to look at a few verses that talk about mission work. We're going to also look at a couple of missionary guests. We're going to interview them. There's going to be a part of this presentation that we're going to be talking about mission opportunities. So, like, how would you get involved? Then also there is the difficult conversations about mission work. So, like, if somebody was to have, I guess, the anti-mission questions. So we can kind of talk about those. And then there's just regular questions and conversations that we can talk about at the end. So, what does the Bible say about mission work? If you look in Isaiah 49:6, and this is the easy to read version of the Bible, it says, "Now he said, you are very important servant to me. You must bring back the tribes of Jacob." And this is, I believe, God talking to Isaiah. "You must bring back the people of Israel who are still alive. But I have something else for you to do that's even more important. I will make you a light for other nations. You will show people all over the world the way to be saved." The Gospel Commission is another text that you may have all heard. This is in Matthew 28:18 through 20, and this is again the easy to read version. So this is Christ telling his disciples before he leaves. "So he came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on this earth is given to me. So now go make followers of all the people in the world, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything that I have told you to do. You can be sure that I will be with you always, and I will continue to be with you even unto the end of the time. So here is a video from YouTube of this person's time in the mission field. And this person actually did a mission trip inside the United States. So it shows you that mission work doesn't always have to be some other place. as you can see, these are the highlights of the time that this person had when they were in the mission field. I'm going to now turn the time over to our missionary guest that we have. And Miss Jan will be the first person that will tell us about her time in the mission field.
Well, as you heard, I'm Jan Huff, mother-in-law, daughter, they're married. Okay, I was excited that Sean chose this video from Arizona because our Pathfinder club, I think it was 2018-19, went to King Lachi in the Navajo Nation, and we spent a week there doing some construction, doing VBS program, and hopefully we have some time. Sean will tell you some more about that, so stay tuned. My main mission service was in Japan. I went there when I was in college, and I worked with my school. I went to the university in Keene, Texas. Anybody know where that is?
Yeah.
Oh, you live there?
Yeah.
Okay, I still have relatives
Both my
down.
parents work in Sweden.
Oh man, okay. Well, you may know my brothers, and you know, it's a small world. It really is. But I wanted to see a new culture. I wanted to get a new perspective. I was so excited. I knew that God was leading me to get out there and to make believers of everybody I met, and to do all this stuff. And it was going to be smooth sailing. Well, first of all, my schedule wouldn't allow me to go with all the kids that went. There was about 8 of us and they went on to Japan. There was other mission opportunities, but that was the one we chose. And so I had to go a week later than the other kids did. And yeah, I got to stop in Hawaii and spend 5 days there and everything. But then when I got to Tokyo, where I was stationed, I got to the Tokyo International Airport, and there was nobody there to get me. It was me. And there was nobody speaking English, and whoever I asked were not speaking English. And so I'm like, I just missed the classes that the other kids got to take about what to do in Japan, how to exchange money, how to get stuff from a store, what things to say, how to get on a train, how to use the bathroom, all these things. I missed it. So here I am looking really sad in that airport, and this guy from France came up, and he spoke English, and I call him my French angel, because him and I hung out together until we figured out all of the above. And we were going the same direction, and we got on the train and went, and I got to Ogikabo, which was the stop that I was stationed at, and he went on. I never saw him again, but you know what? I think I'll see him in heaven.
Amen.
I will. That was my angel. So that was my first miracle there in Japan. It was not smooth sailing, but I really still feel that the Lord wanted me to go there for my experience, as well as the experience of the people that I went to meet and work with. You know, you think of going to a mission trip outside the United States is a third world country. We're going to teach them everything. They're going to become converted, and you know, all this stuff like I told you earlier. But it wasn't that way. These people are very civilized, very smart, and actually in a lot of ways they have a lot more going for them in the technical world than here in the United States. Anybody from Japan? Nobody? Anybody speak Japanese? Oh, who said it? I heard it. Who said it? Is that the only word you know?
Not like arigato.
Oh, I don't know that. Ohio gozaimasu. So I have a couple other words, but if I kill them, just don't listen, okay? Anyway, so once I got there, one of my jobs, I was going to the university and getting my nursing degree, but you don't have a license when you're overseas like that. So I was working as a nursing assistant, and they wanted me to work in OB. Who knows what OB is? OB?
I know.
Who? What?
My mom's a nurse in OB.
Oh, okay. It's where all the ladies come to have their babies, right? Okay. And then there's the nursery connected with it. Well, there was one funny story after I hadn't been there very long. I thought I had it nailed, some of the language. So we were in there working with one of the ladies, had a little baby, and got it all bundled up, and they handed it to me and said, go show it to the grandmas and the grandpas and all the other relatives that have come. So I went out in the hallway, and here's all these people. None of them spoke English, and so I said, Otoko no akachan. And they looked at me, and I said, no. Onano akachan. And they looked at me, and I said, no, otoko no akachan, onano akachan. And by then, the grandmas were just as frustrated as they could be, and they just came up and unwrapped the baby to see for themselves, because I was telling them it was a boy, it was a girl, it was a boy, it was a girl, and they were like, what is it? So after that, I was in charge of the foreign ladies that came in to have babies that could speak English. And they really appreciated having somebody speak English to them when they were in labor, So that wasn't so bad. And then I got to work in the nursery too, and, diapering babies, and I could coo to the babies, and I didn't have to speak the language so much. So that was one thing that didn't go too smooth. Excuse me. My other job was to teach classes in conversational English, because a lot of the kids that were university age hadn't had English all through their schooling like they do now. Now, you can talk to any of the Japanese kids and they all know English because they have it in school, but they didn't then. So a lot of times they would just go to free conversational English classes, or what classes were offered to learn this. Well, we had a little twist on ours. We taught Bible classes to teach conversational English. And you may think, I don't know that much about the Bible. I couldn't give Bible studies. I couldn't tell people the doctrines of different things, or share with them, how Christ was back in the day when he was here and how it all connected together. I couldn't do that. But really, most Japanese are Buddhists, and they don't read the Bible. So really, the stories that we learn growing up as kids, or that we have learned in the last few years, if you're a new Christian, they don't know those. So you throw the doctrine out of your head and all those things that you think you can't talk about, and you talk about Jesus and the stories that he's told us in the Bible. One other interesting thing is that one time we went to we visited thousands of temples, because they have Buddhist temple, and they have places where you can pray and put incense up and everything, and they're beautiful sights. So it was great to go visit them. Well, we went to, anybody recognize this picture? It's the big Buddha of Japan, and a lot of times this picture is used in a lot of advertising. Well, we went there with some of our students from our conversational English Bible classes. And there's steps inside of this thing. And you go up in here and up in here and up in here, and you climb and you climb and you climb and you end up right here. And you can look out the eyeballs of this Buddha. And, and in our class, we were talking. We serve a real God, a God that can help us, a God that knows things. This one has an empty head. And you know, what a concept. There's nothing to this. And that's what we want to share with people. And I realized at that time that God wasn't taking me there to convert the masses and to do all this stuff. He was taking me there to plant seeds. Do you know there's still Japanese people that I communicate with?
No.
And even now, and yeah,
Yes.
this is my other daughter and her husband, and he's going to tell you something.
So one of the wedding gifts from one of her seeds that were planted was a painted a picture of Mount Fuji, kind of like the one that she just pointed out on the screen. Very beautiful Japanese artwork, and then she also sent us a very fancy origami crane, or whatever Jan calls them in Japanese. Thank you. But that was very nice. It was one of the students she had as a student missionary.
So, and I may never see the results of many of the seeds that were planted when I was over there for the whole year, but God knows. And when we get to heaven, our God will share those things with us. And it will be so exciting to hear him tell of how this seed and this seed and this seed grew because of maybe something that I was able to do with his help. Okay, it wasn't all work and it wasn't all teaching. We did some fun stuff too, and like Brandon said, this is Mount Fuji, and we got to go climb it. It took us 2 days to climb it. We climbed up and then we stayed at a mountain hotel, and the only way they got stuff, food and bedding and whatever, to the mountain hotel was carrying it on their backs. And we stayed there, and then we went up to the top the next day, and then coming down it only took us a few hours because it's shale-like stuff. And when your feet go in it, you're just sliding on down. And it was a really fun trip. And like I said, there was lots of these grounds where these temples were that are just beautifully kept. And we got to tour some of them. One other thing we got to do is we got to ride on the Shinkansen, and that's the bullet train. And you get on this thing and you just can't hardly see anything when looking out the windows because you're going so fast. But one fun thing was we went out to visit a family of one of my students, and they were older, more traditional Japanese, and they have this little table where they sit and eat, and it's hollowed out underneath, so you stick your feet down under there, and in the wintertime they even have some heated rocks and stuff under there. But we were sitting there, and it was the younger family and the old folks. And the old folks, he started laughing, and I was looking at him like, okay, what's he laughing about? Well, he got a basket of something and passed it around to us. Can you imagine what it was? Huh?
He's saying sushi.
Sushi? No, that's sushi. No, it was fried crickets.
Was it good?
And that's why he was laughing, because they eat all manners of raw fish and that kind of thing, and fried crickets was just something that they really enjoyed, and you know, we just passed the basket, but that was a funny thing, and they were very, very nice to us. Not everything you do on a mission trip is all high and excitement. There's the day-to-day humdrum, just get it done, do your work, praise the Lord, and move on. But I'm telling you, if God impresses you to go on a mission trip of this sort, of this length, then don't let money stand in your way, because you can do fundraising, you can write letters to people, you can get sponsors, but our God is big and He can provide if He wants you to be a part of this ministry, okay? And it will definitely change your life.
Thank you, Ms. Jan. So she went to, did a college mission trip for the whole year. We have Mr. Brandon here in Zambia. And how long did you do it?
2.5 weeks.
Go ahead and tell us about that time.
All right, I'll just go over here so I can advance the slides, because I actually have pictures, because
Yes.
cameras existed during my time on my mission trip. That is my mother-in-law, so I will have to deal with that later. Okay, my name is Brandon. I am representing the other side of Jan's coin of the mission trip experience, which is I actually got to take classes on what to expect. I was actually able to attend those kinds of things. They told us how visas worked, what to expect in airports for security, because this is post 9/11, so everything had changed at that point in terms of security. Like certain things you can't take back, some things you can't take to, all that good jazz. Probably the thing they didn't tell us enough about was they did warn us about the climate. It's definitely a lot hotter than I've ever experienced before. This isn't the Sahara Desert hot, but the amount of heat, because this was at the end of what they call the wet season. A lot of that is, it's raining, then it all of a sudden stops and it's just sunshine. But then sometimes there's pretty severe thunderstorms that we went through while we were there. Our mission was working with the Maranatha. Who's heard of Maranatha before? Probably one of the most famous institutions we have for mission work internationally. Our job was to build one-day churches. Is anyone familiar with Maranatha, heard of a one-day church? Does anybody want to tell me what it is? Besides a one-day church. Do you know what it was about, or?
Not much.
You just heard about it? Okay. Basically what would happen is a congregation such as ones that were living around Livingston would contact Maranatha saying, hey, we need a building to worship in. So what they would do is Maranatha would say, okay, well, we're going to develop these steel skeleton structures, and you'll see an example right in the top middle there. This is kind of like half of it. You'll see the beams coming straight out of the ground in the wall right there. A congregation would send $7,500, and Maranatha would give them this steel structure that could be easily erected within a single work day. And that would serve as their building. The congregation was then responsible for putting in the walls. That was basically how it worked. So our mission was to go build these and put up the walls. Most of the time the structure was already up. There was one instance where it wasn't. But as you can see, we actually had to do a lot of the hand mortar laying, brick laying, making sure everything was aligned, it wouldn't topple on anybody and kill anybody, that kind of thing. Because if you don't, every third row you have to put rebar in, and if you don't, it will probably fall apart within not too long. So, one of the pictures I had, how do I advance this, Sean? Space bar?
Right here. This.
Oh, okay. So, before we get to that. So, one of the things that we needed was, we had about a group of 50 people. Not all of us were working on churches. Some of us were working in the medical field, doing dentistry, doing family practice, things like that. That wasn't what I was doing, but we brought some professionals. There was actually an OBGYN that came with us to help with that kind of health.
But one of the things we had to do was we had to learn how to buy from markets, because here you don't go to like Walmart, pick up what you want, go to the checkout, pay for it, and leave. This is more of a bartering system, so Americans get treated a lot differently there. They know you have money. Your money is worth a lot more than theirs. For example, when I was there, this is before inflation, every dollar was 1,500 Zambia kwacha. So $20 was about 100,000 kwacha, just to give you an idea. So if you broke down how much eggs cost here, it's thousands of kwacha there. So you would go to these places, like these open air markets, or sometimes in the rare case there was an actual building for foodstuffs like that. And that's how we had to buy our own food every single day to feed all the 50 people that went. I have any pictures of, this is just a quick thing. This is what this empty skeleton looked like without any walls, if everyone can see that. I'll go back a little bit. One of the interesting things that we did, along with the construction, the medical fields, was our VBS program. So if you notice in the bottom left hand of the screen, there's a man in a green hoodie wearing leaves. There's this particular story about that. We needed a tree for one of our Bible stories, and you can't bring trees with you on an airplane, especially internationally. So we had to make our own tree. So we, ahead of time, we had bought him a green hoodie, and you know those silly little felt leaves that you put on like when you're like little kids? They're like the Jesus felt, and you put them on the blue sky kind of thing. That's exactly what he was wearing, was just a bunch of those little leaves. And he was our tree. But the problem was it was about 100 degrees outside, so he couldn't wear that for very long. But like Jan, it wasn't all work. We actually got to do some pretty cool stuff. So unfortunately, this is me 12 years ago. Unfortunately. These animals you see here, they live on a wildlife rescue. Both of these were raised by humans, so they're pretty used to being around humans. However, they had to be treated very specially because they are still considered wild animals. If you do anything to make them angry, they will come after you. So on the left, I'm petting a cheetah. There was a secondary cheetah in the same pen that we were in, but he was not cooperative like most house cats. He was very finicky about what was going on in his environment, and so he was very angry, especially with this other cheetah because she was getting all the attention. And then there was this lion here, probably on the same reserve, just not in the same pen. Enough. But the only way you could pet the lion is if you held out a stick to distract it. It would play with the stick, and then you could touch it for a little bit.
No.
One of the coolest things about going to, particularly Livingston, is it's right next to Victoria Falls. If anyone knows what Victoria Falls is, it's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Is, if not the largest, one of the largest waterfalls. This was just after the rainy season, so it is flowing. It is almost overflowing with water. It falls into a narrow canyon. The water shoots straight back up into the air, and actually it shoots so high up in the air, it actually creates its own cloud system. And what would happen is if you're immediately within the vicinity of the water shooting back up, is you would get soaked 2 ways. One from the upward movement of water, the secondary from the gravity of it falling back down. The bottom picture is me standing close to the edge. That's possibly as close to the on the Zambia side as you can get. The ones facing the falls, that's on the Zimbabwe side. So this one divides the 2 countries pretty evenly. There is a bridge between this, an edge falls to the left on this photograph on the top right. That is the visibility. It does not get better than that. It is just water, a wall of water. One of the other photographs. So going back to this one. Pretty close to the visit to the wildlife reserve where we were petting lions. We got to go on safari jeeps. These were very conservative safari jeeps. These were not like we run around, go as fast as we can, look at all the animals, leave. This was multi-hour. You crept along at probably 10 miles an hour, maybe if that's your max speed. And you not only look at the animals, but you look at the surrounding nature, and the guides are there talking about all the conservative actions that they're taking to save these animals. One of the incidents that happened with our group was there was 50 of us, and all 50 of us were going. The downside is that takes a lot of jeeps, and so there's basically a small convoy going through this reservation. A baby elephant decided it would be a great idea to start playing in the middle of the road, and no one knew where its mother was. For like, you saw this baby elephant, like, uh-oh, where's mama? Mama elephant came charging out of the bush and just stared at all the passengers in that jeep that were like, I'm in the jeep looking at the elephant's butt, unfortunately. But there was a bit of a stare down. There was no honking of horns, because if you honk the horns, sometimes the animals will panic and charge you. So it's better to just sit there and let them move on. But that was a very scary experience in terms of those people. I was luckily not in that jeep. One second. So one of the cool things about Maranatha specifically was the fact that not only were they doing it when we were doing it, but they continue to work in that region. They've built not only one-day churches, but they've also adapted one-day church skeleton into what they call one-day schools. So now in rural area settings, where especially where this structure that you see here, they can now build smaller ones for school settings and stuff like that.
So Mr. Brandon, and also for Miss Jan, what did your mission work teach you?
For me personally, perspective was probably the number one thing. What I mean by that is, it's one thing to go about your daily life in the United States with all the things that we have here, and it's a completely different thing to wake up in a different country, experience their weather, experience, you know, some of the things that they go through every day. Just existing is different, like breathing different air, and you literally are walking around in their shoes, doing what they're trying to get done, trying to see what their focus is, experiencing their culture is another thing.
And Miss Jan, do you have anything to add?
Well, for me, it's what he said, and also it helped me develop some compassion and patience, and that you don't sweat the small stuff. It's the big things that matter, and we can get tied down with the little things and get so aggravated and upset about it, but when you're doing something for the Lord, it's different. And also just the concept of planting seeds. It really taught me that little things are big things to the Lord when it comes to doing His work.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add there, Mr. Brandon?
Just because of the fact that this is youth mission, there was, we did get to see, I unfortunately don't have footage of this, but someone did take it back then. It was, they had gathered a bunch of Pathfinders while we were there, and they had shown us their drilling and marching skills. I mean, when I say like a little bit, there was like probably 300 Pathfinders in the one city, and they had gathered them all over the place. Like, there's probably 12 churches that have little groups that just banded together, and they were showing us, they were singing and all that kind of stuff. So they have really good Pathfinders over there as well. That's not the other thing I wanted to add.
Okay.
By all means.
Well, I'm now gonna share with you like what are other mission opportunities that, like, how do you find these resources? One of the things that we discussed in the last class, if you're going to school here at Ozark, the person that you want to follow up with is your chaplain. We also have all these other resources that you may or may not know. I mean, we've got ADRA. Does anyone know what? Yeah, go ahead. What's ADRA? Yeah.
Well, I don't know what it stands for, but I know that they help in like crisis.
Exactly. Adventist Disaster Relief Agency.
Yeah, so when I lived in Peru, they mudslides would always often occur where near I live, and they would always go and help.
Okay. What about AFM? Does anyone know what that is?
Adventist Frontier Missions.
Right. Can you tell us what that means?
I don't know.
Well, the way I like to think of it is like extreme missionary work. Like you get to figure out how to get all the resources where you're going. You're going to be dropped in the desert or jungle or whatever place that you're going to, and you get to figure it out. And it's not only you, there's a lot of praying, of course, because the Lord will figure out how to give you insight on how to accomplish the stuff that you want. This one here, AWA, Aviation.
Adventist World Aviation.
Adventist World Aviation. So there's something, what was it that you were telling us, Miss Jan?
Does anybody remember hearing a couple weeks back about a helicopter from Adventist World Aviation that went down in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a pilot, a nurse, and I think 3 patients that were on that helicopter, and it went down over the ocean, and they were a part of this. And you know, sometimes the Lord asks us for our life, but what a better way to go than working for the Lord, you know? And there was a reason in that. We don't know it now, but we'll find out.
So we also have Maranatha, like what Mr. Brandon said, because Miss Jan did a whole year in college, and Mr. Brandon did just it may not sound like a lot compared to a year, but 2 weeks is a lot of time working. If you wanted to find out more, here's a website. I've got a QR code up here. I'm going to show you the website to kind of give you an idea on how to navigate it. It's just a whole list of what we've got available, you know, as far as mission programs. They've got ADRA. If you click on these links, they can take you to those locations so you can look at ADRA's website. It talks about how you get involved, what you do. You can even donate if that's something that you want to do. The one-day church program, like Mr. Brandon mentioned, these are stories of what they've done as far as success and how they've accomplished the mission that they were setting out to do. In the last class, we were asked a question. So, when's the next mission trip? How do we get to go? Unfortunately, when we were asking about that, there isn't anything specific that's organized at the conference level right now. But there is Maranatha, and if you go here to maranatha.org/volunteer opportunities, you can look at everything that's going on. They've got like a continuing schedule. I know that March 15 through 29, well, that trip's already full and closed, but there's other opportunities that are open. I guess here in April, we're going to have an opportunity to go to Wyoming. This is the location. You can view the project. You can kind of see what it is that they're asking you to do and how you get involved. I know that we've had some friends and family. My uncle, he's very involved in Maranatha, and he's gone to help pick up trash, do plumbing, do electrical, because he's done construction work. And if you don't have that experience, they will definitely have you help them in any way possible. As far as like what is scheduled at our conference level, the ARCLA Youth Department, arclayouth.com. This is their webpage. We have also a Facebook page and an Instagram, and there's a YouTube channel that you guys can watch to kind of get more information. But this is where you would go when we do that stuff at the conference level. So now I'm going to switch our time, the little bit of time that we have left, to the difficult conversations. Now, this is if somebody's like a naysayer. What would you say if they said to you, this is the elephant that Brandon showed us in the room, since most of the money is spent on your airline tickets and lodging for the people that go, wouldn't it be better just to give the money to whoever and just send it? That sounds very similar to what Judas said, you know. Martha, hey, that we don't need to put all that expensive whatever on Christ's feet. Let's just give it to the poor. There's also other parts in the Bible where it talks about we need to be part of the world, but not of the world. And I believe if you remember both their stories, it changes you. So there's that peace that we get out of when we go and do this work. Here's another one. Does the Lord really need me to do the mission? I know I've been an Adventist a long time, and I know there's a lot of people that have preached to me. They've also mentioned that if we don't take the opportunity to do this work, the angels will do it. And I found that in my life, just working with my wife, she's actually the Pathfinder director in our church, that if we're not doing it, we kind of get rusty. We get out of the tune. And really, the work that mission work does and pathfinding does, and any of the ministry that we've talked about today, it's us working on trying to bring friends with us to heaven. The last one here is, do we really need to go into another country so that it can be called a mission trip? And that one right there, you can do mission trip here. It's how we treat our friends. It's how we treat others that we never met before. And it is, when you go on the trip, you will get to see things like they were talking about, that different perspective. So now, I know there's stuff in the Bible that says don't mess with it, but when I look at this gospel call that we discussed earlier, so when he came to them and said, all authority is given in heaven and on this earth has been given to me, go make a friend, is what I'm hearing, of all people of the world, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, showing them how to obey everything that I've told you to do. And this part I just want to emphasize. I can be sure that I will be with you always. I will continue to be with you even unto the end of time. And this is what Christ is doing for us. He's letting us know that he's with us. So, with that said, was there any questions or conversations that we would like to discuss? We've got a few minutes. Yeah.
Is there one to Japan?
That's the one going to Japan. ACA, when you're in university, might have opportunities available. I know.
I'm trying to go for the whole year.
Exactly, that's the kind of thing. A lot of people end up mostly going for studies just to learn something there. I don't know if any active Japanese missions going there, but you could also check those resources every once in a while, see if there's something there.
And Miss Jan, how did that work? The process, when you're at college, was it?
The process was that you went to, in our college, it was the director of religious studies, and maybe here at the academy it's the chaplain.
Yeah.
That would be a good place to start. And then they give you paperwork to fill out, and they decide whether you would be a good fit for whatever place. Then you have to get your visas and your passport and raise money.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned earlier,
Hasn't changed.
don't let that discourage you, because our God is big, and if he wants you to go, the money is there.
Yeah. Is there any other questions? I just want to thank you for your time, and you've been a great group. Thanks again. And I think they're going to reconvene in there. So
Yeah.